Did you ever tell your narcissist that they were a narcissist? Did you bring that up and be like, hey, I think you have narcissistic personality disorder, and how did that go for you? A lot of times people will bring up different things to a toxic person to see if it will elicit a response or get them to respond in a certain way. How did that actually work for you? A lot of times people confront, but what happens on the flip side, we're going to dive into that more. We'll dive into some of the typical reactions and responses from a narcissist when they're confronted with narcissistic traits. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist that was confronted. It did have someone actually confront me one time saying that I thought I was a narcissist. I'll tell you a little bit more about that story in a minute. If you guys don't know who I am a self-aware narcissist trying to help people understand awareness about narcissistic abuse. If you want to work with me one-on-one, or if you're interested in hearing more about this, you can go to rawmotivations.com or jump into our 7-day challenge for $7 just to have you understand narcissistic abuse, reactive abuse, like the guilt of being with a narcissist, how we help people break out. That's at escapetoxicity.com. So anyways, check that out. As we dive into this piece of what happens when you tell a narcissist that he's a narcissist, what actually develops, what actually happens. Now, the majority of the time, one of the questions that people have is, does a narcissist know that a narcissist is a narcissist? And you have to be able to understand, a lot of times narcissists don't actually connect the dots of this word is me. Okay, and if they start to realize that, they're still not going to acknowledge it, and they're typically going to run away from it. A narcissist knows what they're doing. That's why they do it to you and not to other people. So to kind of just quell all the thoughts of like, well, they don't actually know what they're doing. They know what they're doing because of who they're actually doing it around. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't want to own up to it. So I had to hide from it. I had to not be accountable from it as much as I could. Okay. So what happens when you actually tell a narcissist that they're a narcissist? Okay. First aspect is typically deflection, denial. Not me, not who you're talking about. What are you talking about? This is not me. Okay. This was my MO first and foremost. Okay. Ended up coming out of a slightly vulnerable moment where I was realizing with my personality, and I was realizing how I showed up, that I didn't care about people. I didn't care about the coworkers I was with. I didn't have the same type of empathy, connection, sympathy to people, all these different aspects. I was like, I don't connect the same way. And so I was walking through some stuff, and I was like, in a moment of vulnerability in the kitchen one time, I was just like, you know what? I wonder if I'm like a sociopath. And we're like, my wife was like, what? And so we started looking it up, kind of went through it, and I was like, nope, don't think I'm a sociopath. She'd already been watching some of Lee Hammock's videos. She'd already been watching some other videos about narcissism, and she was like, you might be a narcissist. And so I looked that up, and then it was like, no, not me, not at all. So the first instinct was just deflection and denial. Like, let me actually deny the fact that I actually am this way, that I am a narcissist. Let me actually pretend that it's something else. And a lot of times narcissists will try to avoid any type of accountability by owning up to that they're a narcissist. So like once they get confronted with it, they're just like, poof, no, not a narcissist. A lot of times it will go back onto the other person. Well, you're a narcissist. Have I called my wife a narcissist? Yes, there's been multiple times I've called my wife a narcissist. Deflecting it, projecting it, putting it back on the other person so that I don't have to own it. Okay, a lot of times with this piece of like trying to deny it and trying to get away from it, it's like, what do I have to do to get you either distracted from it, or what do I have to do so you understand I'm denying it and it's totally not me? So for me, part of my MO is then let me go to other people in my life, so coworkers, affair partners, people that were integrated with our lives, and be like, hey, my wife said I was a narcissist. Can you believe that? It's kind of wild. Like, look at these. Like, I'm not this way, right? Leading them and baiting them to the place where they would admit and agree to the fact that I wasn't a narcissist. Oh, maybe I have traits. Oh, maybe I look slightly that way. Well, I've done that, every once in a while, but hasn't everybody? All these different types of pieces to try to convince them that I wasn't a narcissist. Now, they didn't have as much context. They didn't have as much background of living with me and the abusive asshole that I was there. So as a result, most people came back and being like, yeah, no, you're not a narcissist. So then the next step was, hey, why don't you let her know that? Because I feel like she's not actually seeing this clearly. See, this is like the piece of let me deny it and let me bring it back so other people are actually convincing her of saying like, oh, he's actually not a narcissist. Like to start to discredit her perspective and even turn it back on her. Like maybe she's the one that's crazy. A narcissist will use this defensive response to be able to avoid having any harm to self-image. Okay, like narcissist, bad image. Like don't want to look like a narcissist, don't want to be a narcissist, so have to be able to protect that. That's not me. Like that's not who I am. That's not what it looks like. To also avoid any of the shortcomings, to avoid the things that narcissists actually do. Okay, so this might have happened in your relationship where you said, like, hey, I think you're a narcissist. And he responded, like, you're just trying to say that to make me look bad because you're jealous of my success. Like, you're just trying to say that to make me look bad or feel bad because you're not doing as good. Like, you're the one with the problem, not me. You're too sensitive. Did you hear any of these phrases? Because a lot of times a narcissist will try to flip it back around on you, to deny it, to deflect it, to make you feel bad for it. So then we get to the aspect of where a narcissist starts to gaslight and manipulate. Just like I was starting to gaslight by bringing in other people to convince my wife that I wasn't a narcissist, to manipulate the situation. Like your narcissist, you might have already seen, is a skillful manipulator that uses these different techniques, uses gaslighting to try to undermine your reality, to undermine what's actually happening. And a lot of times when you label narcissists as a narcissist, they start to do things to minimize your concerns. They start to do things to make you feel like, well, maybe he actually isn't. Like he doesn't actually have all 9 characteristics. You only have to have 5. But like you start to explain it away. Like might get to a way of like minimizing your concerns, might get to a place of like twisting the truth. Like that didn't actually happen. Like you heard me say this, but what I meant was this. Like you saw this, but what I actually was intending with this. It wasn't my intent to hurt you. And we get to see all these different things where just slight tweaks of the truth start to confuse you. And narcissists will use this over and over to gaslight and manipulate you into believing an alternate reality. With gaslighting, it's not just twisting the truth. It's also getting to the place where they're not just saying, hey, this didn't happen. They're not just denying it, but they're also trying to make you feel crazy for believing the truth that it actually happened. So narcissist wants to blame you, wants to put it back on you, wants to confuse you, and make you doubt your own judgment. This whole goal of let me doubt your own judgment is so that I can be in control of the situation, of the information, of the communication, of the relationship. So you're going to see this to minimize you in a lot of different ways. Minimize the things that just happen. You're overreacting. Like you're way too sensitive. I was just joking. You're being extremely too sensitive. You're always misinterpreting things. Did you get any of these phrases? A lot of times a narcissist will try to put it back on you by minimizing the things that you're actually feeling. Now, the last aspect that I want to be able to focus on is the invalidation and dismissal. Okay, so like kind of step by step. My progression first was deny it, not a narcissist, right? The second thing was making her doubt her reality by bringing other people into the situation to tell her that I wasn't a narcissist. Okay, then we're moving in that state of like, I need to be able to invalidate you. Invalidate your opinion of me, invalidate your accountability of me, like invalidate all of it and to just dismiss it. It's not that big of a deal. So as a result, I didn't bring it back up. As a result, anytime she'd bring it back up, I would squash it. I'd put it down. I would invalidate her opinion. But you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a psychologist. You're not trained in this way. You can't diagnose me. All these type of things. Okay? Of trying to invalidate the other person's thoughts and feelings and opinions to make themselves feel bad. Now, narcissists are going to dismiss your concerns. They're going to move it away. And they're going to do that typically by attacking you. By belittling you. Belittling your opinion or fighting in a certain way that's going to find small little pieces of the argument to destroy. So a lot of times with my wife, I would fight very technically. Okay, she'd be like, you got home at 5 o'clock and you said you were going to get home at 4. Be like, no, actually I got home at 5:01. So you definitely can't keep track of time and you obviously don't know what you're talking about. Okay, this is the straw man tactic. Basically create another argument that you can defeat. Okay, but moving, there's a lot of different pieces. Okay, but like the whole aspect of like fighting in these different ways of like, if I can prove that you said something wrong in one tiny little instance, then it means your whole argument's wrong, which isn't true. But I want to do that to belittle, to downplay, to kind of manipulate the situation so that I be in control of the conversation and of the argument. A lot of times narcissists are going to belittle you, downplay the impact of their behavior to you, and outright just ignore you. Ignore your accusation, give you the silent treatment, invalidating your feelings and experiences. They start to get to the place of where I am superior. I am entitled to the things that are actually going on. What did your narcissist do? Like, how did he respond when you called him a narcissist? Don't be surprised if in the moment he turns around and calls you a narcissist, or within the next 3 months, he starts to come back with words and lingo that is narcissistic and putting it back on you. You're just gaslighting me. Like, you're attacking me now. Like, you're so abusive. Why would you talk to me like that? And all of a sudden, they start to flip the role. This is what is very important for you to be able to understand. Oftentimes, it only ramps up and it becomes more dangerous when you tell a narcissist that they're a narcissist. Because they either learn about it, they start to understand, or they start to see the direction you're going with it, and they manipulate and control to try to get back into a power dynamic over you. Here's the thing you need to know. If you're at the place where you're like, I want to tell the narcissist that he's a narcissist, let's just focus on something simple. Can he actually admit that he's a liar and be honest? Can he admit that he's a cheater and stop the cheating? Can he actually show up vulnerable and honest on a day-to-day basis and continue that change moving forward? Here's the thing you need to understand. If he can't do those things, don't bring up narcissism. It is a waste of your time. If you can't deal with someone who's willing to engage with truth and with honesty, then you cannot bring into the table, hey, I think you're a narcissist. Because all they're going to see is like, well, that means I can't get healed, so this is just who I am, so you're going to have to deal with it. Or, oh, no, I think you're the narcissist, and flip it around back on you. This process is very difficult, and you have to be careful when you're going down the road of even considering telling this person that they're a narcissist. Okay? Because if they are not willing to live in reality, then all you will be doing is opening and exposing yourself for more abuse. So please be careful. If you need any help going through some of this, you can reach out. You can go to www.rawmotivations.com. We'd love to work with you one-on-one as we continue to help you progress in your healing, your growth, and your change. And if you haven't already, subscribe or share this to someone else, or just share the episode, whatever it might be, to help someone else who might be thinking, should I tell my narcissist that they're a narcissist, or what should I actually do?